fraud that was outlined in the petition that was not allowed to go into the court. The petition was not brought to the floor, and as a result, Tina Peters was unlawfully imprisoned. My father, Dale Richardson, was actually tortured in the state of Colorado to suppress his evidence of treason against the United States, which was based on improper engineering controls which allowed for the spread of the COVID-19 virus, which was likewise created at Wuhan by Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance with the pathogen, which were handed over to the Chinese by the Winnipeg Biolabs. This created the circumstances for widespread election fraud. My father Dale and I are friends of Tina Peters, who has been politically persecuted for standing up for the liberty of all Americans. And she, as a sister in Christ, has been persecuted like I have for standing up for the liberty of all people. In the state of Colorado, women and Christians are being persecuted on monumental levels, and I'm calling for everyone to stand up for Tina Peters in every way possible, including using the CARES Project action plan to compel the state government to put the petition for redress of grievance to the floor so that Tina Peters can petition before the state house that belongs to the people. And if Colorado continues to deny a Republican form of government, we will implore that Congress and President Donald J. Trump initiate Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, which guarantees a Republican form of government, to the states, and use that just power to intervene and provide what the Constitution has ordained. The time is upon us to come together and stand united as people, and let the world know that we stand together to preserve this perfect union for all Americans and our posterity. That is why, y'all already know, I'm going to leave you with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who cannot be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Ciao, guys.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CARES Project podcast. Today we have with us again Alvin Lee from Courage is a Habit to come back and talk about the protection that we need for the children in the school. So if you want to reintroduce yourself to our audience, obviously my dog.
Happy to. Good to see you guys. It's been a little while. So my name is Alvin Louie. I'm with Courage is a Habit. And our organization creates tools and strategies for parents to understand what's happening in their public and their private schools, and why schools have turned into political and sexual indoctrination centers. I met these two wonderful people when we were fighting the transgender trafficking bills, because there's so much of the sexualizations that are grooming children in schools for all these horrible things that that people like these two wonderful people fight, all the trafficking, and those things don't happen in a vacuum. The children are set up to be vulnerable to these horrific and evil conglomerates through your very taxpaying dollars. And so my organization breaks it down so that the average parent who, and as you know, if you have school-age children, sometimes you don't even have time to take a shower, much less read long white papers. So we try to break our tools into beautiful vignettes that are easy to understand, but are useful. But most importantly, we always have a call to action. We always give parents something to do. And so we'll have a great conversation today and prepare parents to protect their children this coming school year, and also outside of school, and all the things that the war on children that we're facing today. I think your mic might be muted, Dale.
There we go. I'm talking to myself again. Right? It happens. Get older. But I saw a post that you did on X about just this past week or so about what was going on with this medical facilities that they're putting in the schools. And you want to give us an idea of what's going on, because giving medical treatment to a child without a parent's consent, that's insane.
It's absolutely insane. So more parents know about it now because we've been pushing and fighting it. But literally 6 months ago, very, very few parents were aware that schools are now installing medical centers, and they're called school-based health centers. School-based health centers, or they might shorten it and call it the SBHC, school-based health centers. But what they really are, they're medical facilities that are in schools, and they're paid for by your tax dollars, either through grants and or through referendums, tax increases, usually both. And the reason why they can get these centers in is the same reason how they got the transgender ideology in. Parents are unsafe and abusive. Parents don't know. So we need to step in. And that's the same rhetoric, the same bait and switch that they use to keep secrets from parents. And so this phrase is, if you give them an inch, they take a mile. No, if you give them an inch, they take 100 miles, and they take your children. It's not a mile. They never take a mile. And so this is the next level up. And so these medical centers, they are sold as, and stop me if this sounds wonderful. If you're a single mom, wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to miss work and your child didn't have to miss school to take them to the dentist or take them to get their flu shot? If you don't understand the corruption in government K through 12, that sounds very noble. Like everything they do, empathy, inclusion, diversity, sounds noble. So people will nod their heads and take them at their word. Yes, and sure, the dentist is there. Sure, the flu shot's there. But you know what else is in these medical clinics? Plan B abortion pills, COVID vaccines, transgender drugs, affirm-only counselors, all without parental consent. That's what these medical clinics do. And they'll tell you, they'll do the bait and switch, they'll do the smoke and mirrors and tell you, you can opt out. You can opt out. And then parents go, oh, okay, I'll just opt out then. But then you ask them the question and you put their feet to the fire and you go, if a parent opts out, but the child still goes into the clinic and says, I want to get XYZ, but I don't want to tell my parents, do you still treat the child? They'll say yes, because
What?
parents are unsafe and abusive. You see?
Yeah.
That's what these medical clinics are. And they're popping up all across the country. We've been fighting the ones in Maine as a model. But even red states, they have them because they're sold just like social emotional learning, just like anti-bullying. It always fools good people. And that's what these medical clinics are at a summary.
Yeah, ultimately nothing is for like the best interest of like the child and the parent. Like even when I was in school, I remember like from the time that I was in an elementary, they always had counselors and nurses and stuff at the school. I grew up in Canada though, and they would always, if you said, "Oh, I done this because my family taught me to do this," they would tell you, "No, this is wrong. You can't trust your family." One time, actually, um, they told me that like my grandmother's family's from a third world country, so like I can't trust, what she was like saying to me about traditional values. And I went
Oh,
because my
right.
grandmother, my dad's mother is from St. Kitts and Nevis in Anguilla when it was
Okay.
Anguilla. But so I came home and I told my granny, like we were having an argument and I was like, oh, well, you're from a third world country. And so you don't know what you're
You
talking
see how
about. You're not up
quickly,
to date with the science. And
isn't
she
that
was like, what
something?
the hell are
Yeah.
you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she was
Just
like,
get that
I'm
in
not
your
from
head.
no third world country. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and she was like, my country is the queen's favorite flower garden. Like so. And what she was saying was true about like the values and tradition stuff, but they plant the seed from a very young age from
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
the kids to not have any value for what the parents say, even if it was my father or my grandmother, because that's who I was raised
That's
with, and
right.
my great granny. Like they would try to do anything to make you have a disbelief and
Right.
a kind of nervousness about trusting the words and the guidance of your family. And everything that the counselor says, everything that the school counselor and the teacher and the nurse says is fine, but whatever the parent says is like they'll directly tell you, no, your parent is wrong, and this is the facts, and you can't
Right.
trust what your parent like. They're brazen
That's
about
right.
it, so they know
That's right.
exactly what they're doing, and they've been doing it slowly, I think, for a very long time. Where now,
That's
like
right.
you're saying, they're not just having the counselors and some of the nurses, they're having a full clinic where now
That's
you
right.
can manipulate the child in every way possible. You have the psychological effect of the counselor, you have the teacher
That's
who's
right.
going to reinforce it, you have the dentist, the nurse, everything. That's sick.
Everything. Everything. The moment you step into the clinic, there's pride flags and trans flag and pronoun badges. And it's not, there's that term, the old term that fish doesn't know they're wet. And it's
Yeah,
the same thing when your child steps into a K through 12 and these medical centers is part of your K through 12. There's no such thing as getting them away from the indoctrination because it is in
right.
every hallway, every desk, every pencil, every flag, every book, every word, every event, every curriculum. And here's the other thing that it's so, I mean, not to say that's not on its face or it's not scary enough, but over probably the last, depending on where you live, 5 to 10 years, they've been talking about a concept called community schools. And as always, the bait and switch sounds so good. The community schools is about preparing children for the community. It's about community. Well, guess what? These medical centers is part of a community schools. Well, that also means that if a person is eligible for Medicaid, and every state has their own Medicaid program, like for example, Maine is called MaineCare. If a person is eligible for Medicaid and the health center in the school is the closest one to them, guess what? They can walk into that medical center and use that. So now your child is going to a medical center getting maybe something basic, and they're next to these adults who are using Medicaid, and you have no idea. They could have psychological issues, they could have drug issues, they could have all kinds of things because they're using this medical center. Why? Because it's part of the community. And that's what community schools are. So they've been setting this up for a long time. And this is something that we're really trying to get parents to understand, that these medical centers, it's not about the single mom and the dentist. This is a community medical center, and you have no idea the worst kind of people in your city will be walking through these centers right next to your kids.
Oh wow.
Yeah, community schools. Every district has them. If you go to your Department of Education right now, whoever's listening, go to your. So if you live in Texas, if you live in North Carolina, go into the Department of Education, their Department of Education specifically, and type in community schools. You'll find it.
Yes, if you look at it, when I grew up in Canada, they were called, when I was in elementary, my elementary school was called the community school. It had called Tyndall Park Community. Yes, the community schools, and they were using that in the late 70s, early 80s in Canada, and started to bring that forward. And since you're talking about the medical centers, I'm going to bring up one of the pictures about the woman that you were talking about them being able to admit drugs to children without the parents' consent.
Okay.
And so you want to
Oh
explain?
yeah, there she is. Yes. And so this is a school board member. Now I want to say this slowly because people are not going to believe me. This is a sitting school board member currently in a Maine school district called MSAD 11. Okay. It's in Gardner, Maine. She is a sitting school board member, and here she is. Now, remember, when we first started fighting this and we started exposing this, of course, they do the whole, it's not happening, as all transgender cultists love to do. Are you teaching critical race theory? No, we're not. It's not happening. Are you pushing transgender ideology? No. Do you have porn in schools? No, we're not. It's not happening. So when we started hitting the school-based health centers, these medical centers, and we're saying, hey, parents, don't let them fool you with the whole single mother and the dentist. They can do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these other things. And she goes, and they go, it's not happening. And then finally we broke her, And she admitted that, and you can see here in her own words, she admitted that, yes, the clinics can refer out. So they try to do the wordplay. They'll say, oh, we don't do the drugs here. And then you push them and then you go, okay, but can you refer out to them? And then, yeah, they can refer out. So some clinics can give it to the kids right away. And then some clinics refer out. Which difference does it make? The point is that they still brainwash the kids and they still provide these drugs. And if the parents agree, then sure, the parents' insurance pays for it. But if the parents don't agree, they keep it a secret from parents, and Medicaid pays for it.
Okay,
and here she is admitting to it. Same woman, Joanne O'Brien, same person. Here you can see that she basically says that the parents who voted for Trump are Nazis and should be forcefully shut down. Now, again, I remind you, this is a sitting school board member who is responsible for passing policies that impact your children for 7 hours a day, 5 days a week for 13 years. And we love to use examples of people like Joanne O'Brien because in every school district across all 50 states, you will find school board members like her. Sometimes they're the majority of the school board. Sometimes they're the minority of the school board. But in either way, you will find Joanne O'Brien's in your school districts, and we love to string them up and use them as examples.
What you're watching here is that they're using a lot of tactics to groom people, and this is one of the reasons why trafficking is rampant, because it's so normalized to people, because they've been using this steady process in the schools. It was slow, and now they're ramping it up. And
now it's ramping, right?
So normalized because now they're using an emotional response. They're
right.
using a reason why they have primarily women doing this is because they naturally make you feel good, and mothers are there to like nurture their child, to keep them calm when they're babies, and then they continue that, and then the fathers do it a little bit differently. They're help you to overcome challenges because of the different styles of being a man and a woman, but they try to make what the father will do to be bad, and that you just have to feel good all the time. And then they start saying, well, that person is bad because they're doing something that doesn't make you feel good. But sometimes you have to do something that makes you feel good. If you break your arm, it's going to hurt more to set it, but it's necessary to heal. So sometimes pain is not a bad thing.
Right. Well, what you just described there, buddy, it's basically social emotional learning. That, in a nutshell, it's social emotional learning. It's on feelings alone, not hardship, not facts, not challenges, not grit, not real grit. They'll use words like grit and resiliency, but not in the way that we use it or the way that normal people use it. So one of the things that Courage is a Habit that we like to remind parents and teach parents, this is a whole mindset shift. It's called language contamination. And the way we describe it is they use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. And so a word like resilience to the three of us means something very different than when they teach your children in schools. To the three of us and to normal people, resiliency means that you can overcome hardships, that you can keep getting knocked down and keep getting back up and not blame people and keep trying to be better and only compete with yourself. To schools, resiliency means to make children resilient to racism and to climate change and to the patriarchy. I mean, and so this is why it's really important to understand the concept of language contamination, because everything they say, every concept that they push is not the same as what you think it is. I'll give you an example that is, if you work in a corporate environment, this is going to ring true. So there's a really great book that a lot of people have probably read, and it's the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. A lot of corporations have their people read it, especially if you're in the executive position. Okay, and it's a book that's been around for a long, long time, and it's a book by Covey, and it's the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. It's a great book. They're great advice, and it's something that when a team in an organization reads it, it does help them gel better as a team. It helps them understand how to work together because they're working towards a common goal. And that makes sense because when you work for a company, your goal is to make the company money. It doesn't matter if you work in marketing, in engineering, in IT, in any facet of the company. No matter what your micro work is, the collective goal, and the word here is collective, that's the key word, is so that the company makes money. That is the bottom line, to make more money this quarter than you did the last quarter. Because if not, then the layoffs will happen, right? Everybody wants to make more money. So when the schools like social emotional learning, they say, hey, we have a kids version of the 7 habits of highly successful people. And this is what we're going to do to teach your kids. Every parent, their first instinct will be like, this is fantastic. My company had us read it and we're so much better for it. I'm so happy that you're teaching my child to be prepared for the workforce. Doesn't that sound logical on its face, doesn't it? The problem is it doesn't work when you're in an institution that pushes Marxism, critical race theory, and the belief that America is systemically racist. So yes, they are using these wonderful concepts like the book from the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. But remember what I said earlier, the key word is collective. In your company, it works because all of you are towards a collective goal. So the question then becomes, if you use critical thinking, what is the collective goal in a government public school where you've got children from all walks of life and all walks of religion? What is the collective goal? The collective goal is to teach them to be social justice activists. So no, they are not using the 7 habits of the concepts from that book, the 7 habits of highly successful people, to prepare your children to help a company earn money. You're using these concepts to teach your children to be social justice activists. And this is what we've lost in our country, is critical thinking, because we only think 1 + 1 = 2. We don't dig deeper. We don't ask the questions. We don't look at it from different angles and ask ourselves, wait a minute, it works for my company because we have a collective goal. So what's the collective goal of government K through 12? And if you look at all their policies and all their standards, like from Joanne O'Brien, if Joanne O'Brien if Joanne O'Brien, who says that Republican parents need to be forcefully shut down and they're Nazis, if that woman is using concepts from the book 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, what do you think she's teaching your kids? What do you think she's advocating for your kids?
This is true. What I wanted to say here is that I just wanted to bring up a video here quickly, and I think Keisha has something to say. But we have to start looking at what's going on, because this is one of the reasons why they have a disconnect. And the fact, when you mentioned single mothers, this benefits them a lot more than families that have the 2-parent families, because when we have a tendency to pay more attention to actions than we do words, because we're less
That's
verbal,
right.
we're more visual. And so we're going to be like, that don't add up, and we're going to come in and be like, not today, Satan. We're not taking that, right? Like, why are you
that
doing
doesn't
this?
add up.
Right?
That's why you're doing it. Yeah. We put this is why we need more fathers and men in this fight. We don't have enough. Thank God for all the mothers and all the mama bears and everybody, all the mothers that are flooding the schools and doing all that stuff. It's amazing. It's amazing to see, but we need more fathers and men, because we fight differently. And when a man walks into a room and he asks a question, it hits differently.
You want to say something, Keisha?
Yeah, I was gonna say that they even even though they're like oversaturating a lot of the things that they're showing the children at this point, I think it's overkill, because even when I was growing up, you didn't need to do all of those things to convince the children to go kind of sideways with like the transgender ideology and all this other stuff. Like, it was actually
Right.
very easy because they slipped everything even into the classes. I think that what you're describing right now, they've already actually been doing, but now they're just coming out and confessing that they're doing this,
That's right.
because they had
Right.
that collective kind of mindset when I was going through kindergarten to grade 12, because all of the classes seem to revolve around all of those overarching themes. And
Mhm.
even in the science class, like, even in science, they came up with the idea that you can have, you could be a boy with a girl brain and a girl with a boy brain. And
Yeah.
at some point I was like, Dad, this is the science, this is what I'm going to do. And if they would have had the full blown medical clinics at my
Right.
school, and with
Yeah.
the counselors telling me, oh, Keisha, this is what this
Yeah.
is, and the school teaches or whatever, who knows if I would have been like, oh yeah, like as a teenager, as a kid, but I didn't have those options, and I had to go to my father to be like, hey, what about this? And he was like, absolutely not my house. Like, top surgery, no.
Right.
Medication, no.
Yeah. If you were 15 years younger, and going to school as a teenager, or 12 years younger, I mean, that you would have been on a different path, because, well, it's also the money. Even in the Biden administration put in billions, the Biden administration alone, not to say that the previous, right, that's been going on now for a long, long time, but the Biden administration alone put in billions of dollars to mental health. So you can imagine over the time, and this is, the Republicans are just as guilty of it, because they don't look deeper. They get lazy and they hear mental health and they just write that check. And Republicans fall for it all the time. You want to fool Republican, tell them it's just for mental health, and they'll write you that blank check, having no idea that they're funding things like Out Maine and Trevor Project and Human Rights Campaign and all those heavy transgender grooming orgs. And this is that language contamination that we hit so hard on.
Yes, we're going to take a short commercial break, and then we're going to start pulling up some clips. I want people to hear some of the things that are going on. We're going to start tying how this grooming is going in with the pornography and big tech putting this stuff in the hands of children, because this is a synergistic effect that needs to be dealt with. We'll be right back after we hear from the Pillow Man.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
All right, so if anybody needs any of the MyPillow products, go to mypillow.com/Karis or call 800-845-2942. Use the promo code Karis, or you can support with some of the ways you see in the ticker at the Give, Send, Go. Or if you're watching on Rumble, BitChute, or Facebook, you see the links in the description. There's all different types of products, merchandise, and all sorts of things. Cups like this, too. So if you want to support, feel free to do so. We got good content, and we're here trying to help people protect their children and our society as a whole. So we're going to bring up now a little clip from this same woman who is talking about, about what parents should be able to know about, because they don't make decisions in board meetings. So I'm going to bring up this first clip. Let's take a look. Or where's the video?
Michelle.
There we go.
Our board guidelines state the MSAD 11 school board recognizes that the primary purpose for use of its facilities is to deliver its education programs, not healthcare. The school board also recognizes the capital investment the community has made in its school buildings and facilities.
Point of order. I know the policies. Thank you. I don't need them read to me.
It is my time to speak. The school board.
I called a point of order. So actually, it's up to the chair now.
That's right.
We all know the policy.
Do they all know the policy?
They don't make decisions. They're not the decision makers.
Okay.
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 And our policies are all online.
Mm-hmm. So,
So this was back in late January. So the person that said they're not the decision makers is the board chair. Her name is Becky Fless. She's on the same board as Joanne O'Brien that you showed earlier, but Joanne O'Brien is a school board member. Becky that you heard from there, she's the actual chair. Literally, she's the chair of that board. And Michelle, the one who was reading the policy, the school board member, Michelle, you can see she pointed and said, do they know the policies? Because she was trying to read the policy to educate parents and say, the school-based health center cannot, based on our own policy, the school-based health center should not exist, because they were looking to see if they're going to vote on it. And because she was trying to say our own policy states that we can't have for-profit, because the health centers are for-profit.
Yes.
They make money, of course. They make a lot of money. And she was trying to say, based on our own policies, we cannot have a school-based health center. And the lady who cut her off and said, point of order, is a transgender cultist. Her name is Alyssa Tracy. And she did not want parents to listen to the policy. Imagine this. Imagine you're sitting. So Alyssa's a school board member, okay? Her colleague is reading a board policy for parents. 99% of parents do not know board policies. 99.9% of parents, you go to a parent and go, hey, do you know what your board policy is? No parent's going to go, yeah, I know what the board policies are. So Michelle was trying to do a public service by reading the board policies. Alyssa, being the transgender cultist that she is, because she wants the school board, there's the medical centers in the schools, cuts her off and said, point of order, where then the chair could override that and say, yes, I hear your point of order, but the parents need to hear the policy so they can make decision. Michelle, go ahead. Instead, she says, because she herself is a transgender cultist, says they don't need to hear it. They don't make the decisions. If we told this story without the video, no one would believe us. We could not convince anybody that in the same board we have Joanne O'Brien saying that if you're a parent that voted for Trump, you're a Nazi, you should be forcefully shut down. A transgender cultist cutting off a colleague from reading a board policy to educate parents, and then the chair saying they don't make the decisions. They're not the decision makers. All sitting on the same board. No one would believe us if we didn't have the receipts.
You know,
this is why your schools look the way it does today.
Yes. The problem that I have with this is that when you look at this whole transgender agenda going into schools, it is highly sexualized. They're teaching what they teach as sex ed now is completely different than what they do before. Like in Canada, they were sending kids home with wooden dildos and condoms and all these types of things, and telling kids to go and ask their fathers about masturbation and things like this and their experiences. What is going on with this? You're seeing a high amount of sexualization with children.
Yes.
And then you're seeing these types of like the practices, because some of these kids like these things and they're subjected to things. It makes them feel good, so they want to do it. Well, crack feels good to a crackhead. Doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a lot of things that feel good that are bad. So and harmful. Sure. So don't just because it feels good doesn't mean you should do it.
Especially for children. Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
It's called comprehensive sex ed. In the United States, it's called comprehensive sex ed. And it's basically every single sexual deviancy known to man. And they mention abstinence like in passing, just a little bit. And then the rest of it is all the most introducing children to the most sexual deviant orientations that you can imagine, and then encouraging them that they're the ones to give consent. And when parents, again, here's the language contamination when it comes to sex ed, they'll always say, we're teaching children consent. Now, when I say that to a parent, if a parent hears that, the first automatic knee-jerk reaction for a parent is consent means no. Right? I didn't say that. I just said consent, but you fill in the blank. You think consent means no. Well, the way the schools teach it is consent means you can say no, but you can also say yes as long as you want to. And that's how they start grooming kids. And then of course they start lowering that age bracket. They start lowering the age of consent lower and lower. And this is why we always say, and you both of you know this probably better than I do, unfortunately, because the work you guys do is it's you see so much evil. The transgender cult's long game is just pedophilia. That's really the long game, because if you can convince a country that a child that's 4 years old knows that they're a different sex and an 8-year-old can take puberty blockers, then honestly saying that an 8-year-old can consent to sex with someone who's 18-year-olds or older, that's actually not a high bar at all. It's actually not a high bar at all. If you can convince people that a child knows that they're born in the wrong body and they can take puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and destroy their body at 11, 12 years old forever, making them a lifelong patient, then if you come in and say, yeah, they're 11, I think they can make their own sexual decision with a 25-year-old, it's like, that's actually not a stretch. You're actually going backwards.
Yeah, it's giving capacity to children in ways that they have no ability to, determine or mitigate the risk or consequences of, like, so that the people who want to abuse them or take advantage of them, the people who want to be the beneficiary of that ignorance, is going to have the full capability to go in and do whatever they want to them. Pedophiles are the only ones that benefit from that, because kids, first of all, kids having like any sort of intimacy with one another is actually a crime. Even, like, you're not allowed to have sex below a certain age. Even, I mean, in Canada for a long time it was 14. They raised it in like 2008. But when you give capacity to a child in that way, like you mentioned, like a 4-year-old and 8-year-old, then it's like they're going to come up with, okay, well, they can do that consent that you're talking about. And that's ultimately what we're seeing happen. Because after you go through so many levels of deviance, the only other place, like, we watched the one girl, we showed clips of her. Well, she's
Right.
an adult porn star, and she said the only thing after a certain amount of deviance, the only thing left is children and animals. And she says it always goes there at the end of
It
the
always
day.
goes
It's
there.
really sad, but that's the end result.
That's always the end result, right? Dale, it's funny, Karis, that you were talking about that you used the word capacity. You use that word because, and I don't know, Dale, if you pulled this from my media package, but there was a video from the clinic where the president of the medical clinic that they're looking to install literally says the child has decision-making capacity.
Yeah, I can.
Right. I'm Keisha, by the way. Karis is my sister. But yes, they
I'm
tried
sorry.
to
I
make.
beg, right, I'm
You
sorry.
said no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tried to give children decision-making capacity as adults. Yes, it's very sick.
Yes. And so if you saw it's actually the last video in the package.
Yeah, I'll pull that up.
Yeah. And so you can hear it plain as day. It's funny that you use that word there, Keisha, that because that's
had
exactly
no
what-
connection to our
None.
district based on what we could figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Scratch. So over the last 6 days,
Our federal tax
And
dollars
then
pay for it. There is.
I would.
Alan, you are not on the board. You need to, this is not a conversation. This is not.
Another video of them
Yeah, I'm going
just
to.
I would
So
encourage you at this point to move.
we're going to move forward. So just so the board realizes and the community realizes that the bulk of the emails we've received that don't even come from here.
Dale, that wasn't the video. That video was them discounting parents, emailing them saying they don't want the clinic. That's how disgusting they are. But the package should be the very last one, and the title is the child has decision-making capacity. It should be the last video in the media package.
Okay, I'll get that and I'll queue it up as soon as I have
Yeah.
it ready.
So it's interesting you use that word. So what they mean is they'll say that a counselor in these clinics will interview your child, and based on the decision, the decision of the clinician, they'll call him the clinician, but it could be a clinician, it could be a counselor, that they can then write and say, yes, I agree that the child has decision-making capacity. So I really want everybody to understand this for a second, okay? So you have your child, right? You bring her, you bring him home, you bring her home, you stay up all night because they're crying for those first month, 2 months. You change every diaper, you clean every throw up, they barf everywhere. You get up for every fever, every scraped knee, every tears, everything. You teach them how to walk. You watch them go through life. You know your child. Then you bring your child to a building with a name called school on it. And a stranger interviews your child, okay, at 8 or 9 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, whatever. So let's just take it in the middle, 11, 12 years old. Once or twice. And they can say, yeah, I agree. That child has decision-making capacity. They don't need their parents' decision to make medical decisions. I know that child.
You know, the only people who I've ever seen do this my entire life were people who violate children, like, and traffickers, because I watched this
Yeah.
throughout my entire childhood in school, where people
Right.
try to make me believe that I knew better than my father and that I knew better than my granny or great grandma, the stuff they were
Right.
teaching me to keep me safe
Right.
and protected. Then when I became an adult and experienced being trafficked as an adult in various
Yeah.
different systems and people, they did the same
Right.
thing. Most people were trying to separate me from the teachings or the knowledge of my father, like physically, mentally, and emotionally and spiritually, and then trying
Yes.
to make me believe that I had a higher capacity, a higher level of intelligence than my father and my family. And regardless if children surpass their parents, and I'm not saying that's the case for myself personally, I don't think that's the case. I'm just saying that you can't be, they're trying to make children believe that they can beat the experience, the life experience that the parent
You
has.
just can't do it.
That they're, and you can't. It's impossible.
impossible.
And it sets them up for,
It's impossible.
it sets them up for failure. And
That's
it's
right.
very diluted because now they have an unrealistic idea of how to solve problems and critically think and mitigate a lot of risk
Right.
and stuff. I think my dad has the video pulled up though. I think we can check it out now.
Sure.
Well, this is a video I wanted to pull up before that one because I want people to understand when it talks about capacity. Because a lot of these children are being exposed to pornography and the transgender pornography and all this LGBTQ stuff. And listen to what this woman who is a porn star says about what she does for her work.
For them to consider that my job is real. What I do, all right, we might want to label me a porn star, but technically I am an influencer. I influence people to do sexual things.
Oh, you're an
Right? So now we know that sex gives kids such a high dopamine rush. Right?
It's a high dopamine, right?
And they don't have the frontal lobe capacity to apply the brakes to these types of things because they're children. Now, when you sit down and begin to start considering that they say that children have the capacity to do things, and then they're placing sexualized material in front of them, that when grown women can get men to do things, grown men to do things, what happens when you do this to a child? And now when you begin to listen to
Zero
what they're
chance,
saying,
no breaks.
Exactly. So we'll pull up the
It's decision-making capacity for a minor child.
A provider. So the medical clinician. The medical clinician. Through their interviews and their interactions with
But who gives permission for that child to be interviewed in the first place as a minor child?
Well, under the law, the state law, if the child sought one of those three services, substance use disorder, mental health, or family planning.
I just want to say something here quickly. Is that when you have these children and you're exposed because you're grooming them from childhood, the social emotional learning, this is grooming. This is what they're doing. They're sexualizing the children. Then you have big tech platforms that are making it easily accessible for children to get pornography. They're showing children having sex with adults. Then they're
Right.
showing this LGBTQ plus. They're normalizing this and they're driving this into the hands of little children. They're going to have mental health issues. They're going to have all these issues. They're going to tell them that you can become a boy or a girl. And when I work with children who've been trafficked or with parents whose children have been trafficked or molested, a lot of the girls say that they want to be boys so that the molesters will no longer molest them.
Right.
Right?
Right. That's why it
Yeah,
affects the
that's what,
transgender cult affects the girls. Yeah.
yeah, and that's like even with me, like when I in a situation after being trafficked and after, I would do my best to wear really like just neutral clothing, all black with like, I like wearing turtlenecks naturally and stuff. That's my style, but also just completely covered and in a way where you can't tell that there's anything very much feminine about me because I
Mm.
didn't ever want to permit the idea to people around or even the people that I was staying with that I was pushing myself on the other person or I was at fault for what the people were doing to me because that is an extreme fear in your mind that you wear something that shows any feminine aspect of yourself and then someone will be able to say, well, oh, this person seduced me, or no, I was fully
Right.
covered, I was wearing like
Right.
regular clothes where you can't see anything, like it's easier for women to go into that state of mind because they don't
Mm.
really have, I guess, the physical force or the circumstantial awareness the way that men do to kind of navigate or force certain outcomes, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. So Deo, if you want to finish that video, it go ahead and continue it. Then you can hear the president who's speaking now that she literally says the child has this decision-making capacity.
Okay.
which then the provider would interview them. And if there was a course of treatment needed, they would decide whether they could do that based on the decision-making capacity during the interviews and the visits they had with the student.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something? That they hide it behind mental health does all the heavy lifting, of course. And then family planning. This is how sick the transgender cult is. And here's another example of that language contamination. So they hide the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones under family planning. Now, if you're a normal person, you would go, what does puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones have to do with family planning? This is how sick these people are. So the transgender cult uses they use make-up language. They use made-up language all the time. One of the made-up language is called wrong puberty. They're so sick. There's no such thing as, puberty is a natural thing. There's no such thing as wrong puberty, of course. But the transgender cult says that if a girl is really a boy and she goes through wrong puberty and she can now get pregnant, that is family planning. So we need to halt their puberty by giving them cross-sex hormones and then puberty blockers, then continuing with cross-sex hormones to not allow them to go through their natural puberty, which they call wrong puberty. And that is what they considered family planning. So you have to understand that when you're dealing with a transgender cult, nothing is the way you think it is. These people are quite literally insane.
Yes, they are.
They don't live in reality. They're insane. They're corrupt. It's the biggest medical scandal. They're devious. They're dishonest. They're emotional manipulators. They're narcissists. Every single bad trait of a human being, they possess. That's what parents are dealing with.
I'm going to bring up a little portion of a clip before we get, because we're running up on time. But this is one of the reasons why they're putting pornography in the hands of children, because it is assisting what they're doing. Listen to this. This woman that I'm bringing up, this woman has a master's. She's done research on this. She's got stuff in the text, but this woman is extremely brilliant. Listen to what she says about what she does to an adult to get them to go now and become attracted to transgenders, and imagine what this is going to do when this is placed in front of a child. Just listen.
I've noticed from my interviews from doing this podcast how many girls have told me that they have, grown into their sexuality, have grown up sexually in the industry. I mean, Asa Akira told me that. Nicole Aniston had never masturbated and orgasmed on her own until she came into porn.
Yeah.
So there's so many examples of people who came from, probably sexually restrictive backgrounds, or maybe just didn't know any better, and then came into porn and kind of had this sexual awakening within like a safe environment to experiment with these things in. And that's such an incredibly different view than the way most people look at porn. I mean, if you can look at it as a kind of training ground for you to find who you really are.
Oh, that wasn't the right one.
Wow.
Oh, that's one of them. I'll put the other one up here, and then you're gonna see what the rest of that says here. Hold on, let me get this.
Porn is a training ground.
Yes.
Get guys
It's a
hard
thing.
and that's it. But now it's like it's become so much more complex, and there's a message behind it now, and it's just like it's evolved into something so much bigger than just porn, and it's been such an exciting thing to witness.
Yeah, and I mean, pretty much everybody watches porn. So it is actually a very powerful platform.
Yes.
And it's also powerful because when people are watching porn, they're often masturbating. And when you're masturbating and you receive messages when you're in that pleasure zone, it can kind of seep in and
because it is an intimate, vulnerable time, right? I mean, people always privately, well, not everybody, but you know what I'm saying? It's like a private moment where you lock your bedroom door and you put on headphones or whatever, your roommates to hear, God forbid, your mom to walk in or something like that. So it is this private, intimate moment. So yeah, I could see how it is this vulnerable time that you could be, giving people not only pleasure, but, I don't want to say teaching them a morality lesson, but there's almost something to that there.
The way I see it is more giving them the opportunity to think of, to see different ways of being or different ways of exploring their sexuality, different ways of experiencing the world, different ways of interacting with people. So even if it's for example, I've had fans that have been following me since 2003, fans that just started following me because they like big breasts, never expecting that I would do a trans scene. And now because they've followed me through this time, they may have never expected to enjoy watching a trans scene themselves, but because they're my fan, they've committed to watching the movie, and then suddenly they watch it and wow, they're exposed to a different, a different kind of sex that they end up enjoying.
Imagine what that is going to do to a child. This woman knows what she's doing. She's extremely smart. That's what they're doing to the kids.
And imagine this is how they talk about sex through comprehensive sex ed to children in the classroom. This podcast, I'm assuming this little clip is from a podcast of some sort that adults probably watch. But that cadence of that experiencing something different and relating differently, and it's a safe place and it's okay to explore. Those same cadence is exactly what the organization called SIECUS. It's SIECUS, SIECUS, that runs all our comprehensive sex ed in the United States. That's exactly how they talk in their webinars. The only difference is when they talk about it in their webinar, they're talking to teachers on how to bring this into the classroom. It's not a podcast that mostly adults watch.
That woman that was talking about that, the brown-haired woman, her name is Angela White. She's like one of the biggest porn stars on the planet. And and
she's saying she's transing. Is that what she's saying?
She's teaching. She went and did something with a transgender person and had that, and their fans started to watch that because they were attracted to her. And what she's basically saying is what she's doing. This is classical conditioning. They're attracted to her, like where you ring the bell. Now they bring that in, and now they're putting this in front of children, and then children are going to start becoming and getting that into their minds,
more accepting,
especially with when they're being pleasured because of the sexual activity, and then they're going to get this
Oh,
reinforcement into the schools, and then they're going
got
to
it.
say, now I can go and give you the drugs to make you that way.
Right, right. I see. Right, right. Because she's saying that she's using these vulnerable moments when you're getting flooded with dopamine and pleasure, and then introducing something that you otherwise wouldn't gravitate to, and you're a lot more you're in a position to accept it because of the vulnerable position that you're in. Got it. That is downright devious for sure.
Yes, they're doing that physically and intimately, and then the school is coming and doing it mentally and emotionally to and intellectually to the kids to reinforce everything. It's
Got
all like
it. Reinforce.
it's a circulating thing that feeds into itself, a very compounding thing.
Yeah, it's a synergistic. Yeah, it's definitely a synergy. Or Dale was saying earlier, it's a synergistic thing. Yeah.
Yes, and the big tech platforms that are driving this and making money, because when the kids
Mhm.
are on porn, they're going to be customers for life,
For
and it
life.
makes it
Yeah.
very hard. It's going to break them down, and it's going to make it
Mhm.
easier for the schools to go ahead and do what they're doing, and they're going to
Yeah.
train them to go ahead and go to those people who are not protecting them rather than from the parents. And this is why they need to put the brakes on both the porn and what was going on, because the big tech companies are helping to
Yeah.
fuel this like crazy.
Mhm.
It has
Absolutely,
to
they
stop.
are.
100%. I mean, we're running up on time. This was always a great thing. Keisha looks like she wants to have something to say, so I'll let her. Or no, I'll close here and I'll give you your final thoughts. Actually, yeah, how can people reach you and help you? And then I'll close with a prayer.
Well, Keisha, Dale, it's always always a pleasure to see you both. You guys do good work, and I appreciate all the horrors you guys have to face doing the things you guys do. So appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for having me. Great to talk to you guys. So for parents or anyone else that want our tools and strategies, go to courageisahabit.org. Courageisahabit.org. And one of the things that we really are pushing very, very hard is the idea of rejecting inclusion and embracing exclusion, is to embrace exclusion. Inclusion has always been a Trojan horse because nothing in life is inclusive. The only thing that are inclusive is the people in your own your own family, your immediate family under your roof. That's the only people that you can say you include everything that you do is with those people in mind, with your family in mind. But when you step out of your house, literally nothing about our life is inclusive. People can't just walk into your house. People can't just take your car. They can't just use your phone. If you work at a corporation, people have to badge in. You can't just walk into a restaurant and walk into the kitchen and see what they made for the day and see how much money they've made at the tilt. I mean, there's nothing in life is inclusive, and especially when it comes to kids, especially when it comes to children. And so we really want to destroy the idea of inclusion the way it's been shoved into everybody's psyche and that in the narrative, and to embrace exclusion, because embracing exclusion means drawing hard boundaries. And teaching children to be kind today is not the priority. Teaching them how to draw strong boundaries is, with the world that we live in today. And so my final words for parents really is, no matter how hard it is, you have to stand up for your children today, or they'll live on their knees tomorrow.
Yes, and I agree. And I'll close here with a prayer. Thank you for coming. We'll have you got for updates in the future. We got to keep this fight for the children. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the work that Alvin and others like him are doing, and bless that work and help the people, the men and the women, to stand up, and more men to come to the fight, to come together to rebuild our families, our churches, our community, and our nations, and that we would be able to protect children from this evil wickedness is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Perez. Thank you, Alvin, for joining us. Awesome having you back on. I hope that everybody goes and checks out his page, Courage is a Habit, and also his personal and all the work that he's doing, because this is very important information that parents and families should understand. Even if you don't have children, it's something that you should understand, because it will affect you at some point whether you have children or not. So thank you guys for your time and considerations and checking out our show today and listening. We'll catch you in the next one. And to my dearest Gareth, until we meet again, my friend. Aloha.